In The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc, we first glimpse the fabled warrior maiden as a young peasant sprite gambling through multicolored fields. She also spends quality time in the confession booth badgering the local priest with her piety. He can't believe this little sprig has so much that she wants to be forgiven for. When the British invade Joan's village, she watches her older sister first murdered and then raped by a soldier in need of a shave and some heavy orthodonture. Is it any surprise Joan will grow up to defeat the English at Orleans? The only surprise here is her transformation from Pippi Longstocking look-alike to her adolescent incarnation as runway model for the latest in 15th century armor wear. As personified by Mila Jovovich, Joan is lanky and statuesque with stylishly sheared hair and accented cheekbones. Her perfect teeth are whiter than white. When it comes to dentistry, the French win this 100 Years' War hands down. Director Luc Besson, who never met a camera move he didn't like, is perhaps best known in this country for La Femme Nikita, and there's a lot of Nikita, who also looks like a supermodel in this Joan. She's a righteous assassin prone to hissy-fit outbursts of remorse. Apparently, it never dawned on her that people fighting a war actually get slaughtered. The timing for Besson's take on Joan was inevitable. After George Bernard Shaw and Dreyer and Robert Bresson, what a difference the letter R makes, after Gene Seberg and Maria Falconetti and Ingrid Bergman, the world is finally ready for Joan of Arc as the prototype of girl power. Joni the Brit Slayer. Storming the British battlements of Orleans, she takes an arrow full in the chest and, retreating to safety, urges her warriors to press on. This part of the spectacle could be called Start the Revolution Without Me. But then Joan plucks out the bloody thing and rejoins the fray. The battle scenes are in the Braveheart tradition. The score sounds like cannonballs trying to mate, while legions of armored and voluminously hairy bellowers clank to be free. In their verbal ripostes to the French, the British are far from flowery. They respond to Joan's entreaties to yield to the kingdom of heaven with a hearty, "Go fuck yourself." Historical accuracy can be so limiting, n'est-ce pas? Besson and his co-screenwriter Andrew Birkin are offering up Joan as mystic, maiden, martyr. Choose any one or combination. The maiden part doesn't work because of Joan's high diva quotient. The martyr part is tempered by our desire, after listening to so much of Joan's holier-than-thou yowling, to see her taste the flames and be done with it. The mystic part has potential, but Joan's visions are about on the level of a Bjork music video. And Besson introduces a character known to Joan as the Conscience, who tests her faith or something, but is impossible to take seriously because he's played by Dustin Hoffman in a hooded robe and beard. Hoffman delivers his lines in a kind of dry, oracular patter. He could be Obi-Wan George Burns. I don't think Hoffman has ever been sillier, though he's not meant to be exactly. Contrast him with John Malkovich playing Charles VII. With his Dauphin's haircut and ceremonial duds, this king is a fruity fanatic, and Malkovich gives him a gaudiness that's the most entertaining thing in the movie. Hey. Watching the actor here, it occurred to me that the reason he was so perfectly cast in being John Malkovich, where he spends some of his screen time inhabited by a woman, is that as a performer he projects in equal measure feyness and macho belligerence. With Malkovich, you may not always know what you're getting, but it all adds up. He's tuned the omni-weirdness of his screen presence into a remarkably supple comic instrument capable of spanning centuries. Whether he's appearing in the deadpan futurism of being John Malkovich or the deadweight antics of The Messenger, Malkovich is oddly, absolutely right. He's just about the only reason to pace yourself through this movie, but maybe not reason enough. I suspect its audiences will be ahead of the British in sounding their retreat.
Pretty accurate.
And you saw it twice, so you would know. All right, so anybody have any pressing questions to ask the critic? Yeah.
Yeah, I have one. I mean, you sort of alluded to this, but do you think, I mean, the situation now seems to be that, you know, the B pictures get the A actors, and the A directors, and the A money, and, you know, it's vice versa for the A pictures. I was watching Iron Man with my son the other day, and it's like, I stopped counting how many Oscar nominees were in that movie, involved with it. Do you think that situation's ever gonna change, and you're gonna see, the best actors get, meatier, more important roles in, Wolverine or Iron Man?
Well, to some extent, it's always been the case that the big actors, who are not always big stars, but if you're talking about star actors, right? Actors who are stars who can also act, not always the same thing. They get caught up in, like everybody else, in making the big bucks,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to walk away from that. Look at Nicolas Cage's career is a total disaster because he can't say no. He's a wonderful, wonderful actor.
But he does say no to the IRS.
Yeah, right, that too. We won't talk about them either, though. But the thing is, there are actors like Sean Penn who won't put themselves into these big blockbuster superhero things, unlike Cage and most of the other actors. But they are the rare exception. I think Morgan Freeman's career has been compromised by, sort of falling into this comfy, playing God sort of thing, where he really, there's so much more to him as an actor. There's so much more edge. People forget he played this pimp in Street Smart. It's one of the most amazing performances anyone ever gave, and it's scary, lethal work, and it shows a side of him that has been completely eradicated in his career now. But there's an article in here about Brando when he died. Brando to me was the greatest of all actors. And the irony is that he had more disdain for the acting profession than anyone. And it wasn't only for movies. Everyone goes on about how great he was. Streetcar Named Desire on stage was, a milestone in the history of American theater. He never set foot on stage after he gave that performance. And this was in 1947. A lot of actors, as opposed to actresses, feel that as they get older especially, that there's something unmanly about being an actor, that it's not a fit profession, that you should go out and save the world or be involved in politics or ecology or something. So I think that's another problem, that as actresses tend to write novels and memoirs and do other things to take up the slack. But actresses have it much worse than actors, because once you hit the gray old age of 30 in Hollywood, you're considered to be over the hill. And so unless you've made it at the age of 30, or you're Meryl Streep, it becomes very difficult to have a career after that. And there are all sorts of wonderful, wonderful actresses. From the late Jill Clayburgh to Ellen Burstyn, Cicely Tyson, whose careers were effectively jettisoned after they were in their 40s because there just simply weren't any good roles. And because movies cost so much, particularly the kind of films that you're talking about, Hollywood pictures, there's consequently much less risk taken for these films. There's too much at stake. So you're going to get cookie cutter roles and that don't really rise to the occasion for great acting. The only arena where actors, I think, can really be great actors anymore is in the indie world, for the most part. Unless you really have the clout to do the kind of films you want to do in Hollywood, which is very rare. But in the indie world, you've got all these young directors who are hankering for subjects and actors, and gratifyingly, more and more actors, really good actors, who wouldn't go near television in the old days. In the old days, it was like movies or TV, but if you went to TV, it meant that your career was on the downswing. That's not true anymore. In fact, Pacino, all these people are doing TV all the time because the roles are more interesting, and you can do them. So that's I think the hope.
Peter,